The river whispered in the half-light of dawn, a gentle sound against the backdrop of Samuel Trent's ragged breathing. He stood at the water's edge, tall grass brushing against his worn boots. His fingers traced the contours of the tarnished star in his palm, a badge that had defined him for 27 years. Samuel's weathered face tightened as he drew his arm back. The badge caught the first golden rays of sunlight as it arced through the air, spinning like a coin toss for fate to decide. It broke the water's surface with barely a splash. He expected relief. Instead, a hollow ache spread through his chest as he watched the current take his past. The badge glinted beneath the surface, then did something impossible. It moved against the flow, inching upstream as if pulled by an invisible hand. Samuel blinked hard, certain his eyes were playing tricks. When he looked again, the badge had vanished beneath the rippling water. He turned away, shoulders hunched against a chill that had nothing to do with the morning air. Willow Creek stretched before him as he walked back to town, a single dusty street lined with wooden buildings worn smooth by time and weather. The general store's faded sign creaked in the breeze. The saloon stood silent this early, though by noon it would fill with the voices of men trying to forget or remember. Samuel's boots kicked up small clouds of dust with each step. His hand moved instinctively to his hip where the badge had rested for nearly 3 decades, finding only empty space. At 62, his hair had gone from pepper to salt, his face a map of lines that told stories of hard choices and harder consequences. The townsfolk nodded respectfully as he passed. Some still called him Marshal, though he'd surrendered the title 3 months ago after Martha's funeral. Without her, the badge had become unbearably heavy. His small house sat at the edge of town, 2 rooms and a porch that sagged in the middle. Inside smelled of coffee and emptiness. Martha's rocking chair still faced the window, her knitting needles crossed in the seat as if she'd just stepped away. Samuel avoided looking at it as he moved to the kitchen. He poured coffee into a chipped mug and carried it to the porch, settling into his chair to watch the town come alive. Children darted between buildings. Merchants arranged wares. The stagecoach rumbled in, bringing mail and visitors from places that seemed impossibly far away. Night fell quickly in Willow Creek. Samuel lit a lamp and moved to his desk, sorting through old papers without really seeing them. A knock at the door broke the silence. "Mail for you, Mr. Trent," said the boy who delivered telegrams and letters. "Came on today's coach." Samuel took the envelope, its edges worn and crumpled. He didn't recognize the handwriting at first. When the boy left, he broke the seal and unfolded the paper inside. "Sam," it began, "I need your help. They're coming for me, and I can't face them alone. I wouldn't ask if there was anyone else. For the sake of what we once were to each other, come to Brokenridge. Jasper." Samuel's hand trembled. Jasper Collins had been his deputy for 12 years before moving on to become Marshal in Brokenridge. They'd faced down bank robbers, cattle rustlers, and killers together. Now Jasper was calling in a debt Samuel hadn't known he still owed. He folded the letter and placed it on the mantel. The flame in the lamp flickered, casting his shadow large against the wall. Samuel stared at it, seeing not the old man he'd become but the lawman he'd been, straight-backed and certain. Morning found him packing saddlebags. He moved mechanically, muscle memory guiding his hands to the essentials: ammunition, bandages, jerky, coffee. His revolver lay on the bed, cleaned and oiled. Samuel stared at it for a long moment before strapping on the holster. It felt foreign against his hip after months without its weight. The journey to Brokenridge took 2 days. Samuel rode through landscapes that changed from dusty plains to pine forests, the air growing cooler as he climbed. His horse, a steady gray gelding named Buck, seemed to sense his unease, ears flicking back occasionally as if checking on his rider. Brokenridge appeared suddenly around a bend in the trail, a collection of buildings clinging to the mountainside like barnacles on a ship's hull. Smoke rose from chimneys, and the sounds of human activity carried on the wind. Samuel dismounted at the livery stable, his joints protesting after hours in the saddle. Looking for Marshal Collins, he told the stable boy. "Ain't no Marshal Collins anymore," the boy replied, taking Buck's reins. "Sheriff Dawson runs things now. Marshal's office is down the street, though." A cold feeling settled in Samuel's stomach as he walked toward the building with the 5-pointed star painted on the door. Inside, a young man with a neatly trimmed beard sat behind the desk that should have been Jasper's. "Can I help you?" The man's voice held the practiced authority of someone new to power. "I'm looking for Jasper Collins," Samuel said. Recognition flickered across the sheriff's face. "You must be Trent. Jasper said you might come." He stood, extending his hand. "Sheriff William Dawson." Samuel ignored the offered hand. "Where's Jasper?" Dawson's arm dropped. "Locked up. 3 cells back." On what charge? Murder. Shot a man in the back, witnesses say. Samuel's jaw tightened. Jasper Collins never shot a man in the back in his life. People change, Dawson said, his tone suggesting he knew something Samuel didn't. You can see him if you want. 5 minutes. The cell block smelled of sweat and despair. Jasper sat on a narrow cot, his once broad shoulders now hunched. Gray streaked his dark hair, and his face had hollowed. He looked up as Samuel approached, relief washing over his features. You came, he said, voice rough. Your letter didn't give me much choice, Samuel replied. What happened, Jasper? Jasper glanced toward the front office. Not what they're saying. That man, Harlan Wade, was working for the mining company. They're buying up claims, forcing people out. When folks resist, accidents happen. His eyes met Samuel's. I was investigating. Got too close. Next thing I know, Wade's dead, and witnesses are saying I pulled the trigger. Witnesses can be bought, Samuel said. So can sheriffs, Jasper replied quietly. Samuel nodded, understanding the unspoken accusation. I'll look into it. Be careful, Sam. This town isn't like Willow Creek. Money talks louder than justice here. As Samuel turned to leave, Jasper called after him. I kept it, you know. Everything you taught me. Never compromised. The words followed Samuel out into the street, settling on his shoulders like a familiar weight. The Broken Ridge Hotel offered clean rooms and few questions. Samuel took one facing the street, where he could watch the comings and goings of the town. He spent the first day observing, noting which businesses thrived and which struggled, who spoke to whom, where power resided. The mining company's office dominated the north end of town, a 2-story building with glass windows and a polished door. Men in suits entered and exited throughout the day. Samuel watched them from the hotel's porch, nursing a cup of coffee gone cold. You're not very subtle, a voice said beside him. Samuel turned to find a woman in her 40s, dark hair threaded with silver, eyes sharp as hawks. She wore a plain dress, but her posture spoke of someone unaccustomed to bending. Wasn't trying to be, he replied. Sarah Winters, she said, not offering her hand. I run the newspaper. You're here about Jasper. It wasn't a question. Samuel nodded anyway. Walk with me, she said. They moved down the boardwalk, past storefronts and saloons. Sarah spoke quietly, her words meant only for Samuel's ears. Jasper was investigating land deeds. The mining company, Black Mountain Coal, has been expanding, buying properties all through the valley. Some sales seemed too convenient. Owners who'd refused to sell suddenly changing their minds. Others leaving town overnight. And Wade, company man, enforcer, really. The kind who doesn't leave bruises where they show. She stopped walking, turning to face Samuel. The night he died, Jasper was meeting an informant, a clerk from the land office who'd found irregularities in the paperwork. The clerk never showed. Wade was found shot in the same location. Convenient, Samuel murmured. Very, Sarah agreed. Especially since the new sheriff was appointed by the town council, half of whom are on Black Mountain's payroll. As darkness fell, Samuel made his way to the saloon. The Golden Spike was crowded, smoke hanging thick beneath the ceiling. He found a corner table with a view of the room and ordered whiskey he didn't intend to drink. Men from the mining office occupied a large table near the bar. Their laughter cut through the general noise, too loud, too confident. Among them sat Sheriff Dawson, his badge catching the lamplight as he leaned in to hear something from a man in an expensive suit. Samuel watched them for an hour, noting the deference in Dawson's manner, the proprietary way the suited man surveyed the room. When they finally rose to leave, Samuel followed at a distance. The suited man walked alone to a house at the edge of town, larger than the others, with a wrought iron fence. Samuel circled around back, finding a window lit from within. Through the glass, he could see the man at a desk, examining papers. A twig snapped behind him. Samuel turned, hand dropping to his gun, but he wasn't fast enough. Something hard struck the back of his head, and darkness swallowed him whole. He woke to cold water splashed on his face. 2 men stood over him, mine workers by their clothes, with dirt ground into the creases of their hands. Samuel's arms were tied behind his back, his shoulders aching from the position. Boss wants to know who you are, one said, nudging Samuel with his boot. Samuel spat blood onto the dirt floor. They were in a shed or storeroom, the only light coming from a lantern hanging from a nail. Just visiting an old friend, he said. The second blow caught him in the ribs. Samuel grunted, tasting copper as he bit the inside of his cheek. Try again, the man said. Why you asking questions about company business? Before Samuel could answer, the door opened. The suited man from the saloon entered, removing his gloves with deliberate care. "That's enough, boys," he said. "Mr. Trent and I can have a civilized conversation." He pulled up a crate and sat facing Samuel. "Edward Blake, general manager of Black Mountain Coal. And you're Samuel Trent, former marshal of Willow Creek. Quite the reputation you had." "Still do," Samuel said, testing the ropes around his wrists. They held firm. Blake smiled thinly. "I doubt that. Men like you are relics, Marshal. The frontier's closing. Law's becoming a business like any other. Investments, returns, management of resources." He gestured around them. "Progress doesn't wait for old notions of justice. Is that what you call framing an innocent man? Progress?" Collins was interfering with legitimate business interests. "The town needs the mine. The mine needs land. It's simple economics." "And wait." Blake's expression hardened. "An unfortunate necessity. He'd become a liability. Too violent, too visible. Bad for our image." He stood, brushing dust from his trousers. "You have a choice, Trent. Leave town by morning, or join your friend in a cell. Or worse." When Blake and his men left, Samuel worked the ropes against a nail protruding from the wall behind him. It took an hour of painful sawing before the fibers gave way. By then, his wrists were raw and bleeding. He slipped out into the night, keeping to shadows. His room at the hotel had been searched, drawers emptied, mattress slashed. Samuel gathered what remained of his belongings and left through the window, making his way to Sarah Winter's newspaper office. She answered his knock with a shotgun in hand, lowering it when she recognized him. "You look terrible," she said, letting him in. "Feel worse," Samuel replied, sinking into a chair. "I need to see those land records Jasper was investigating." Sarah hesitated. "The originals are in the land office, but I have copies of what the clerk gave Jasper before he disappeared." She moved to a floorboard near her desk, prying it up to reveal a metal box. From it, she withdrew a stack of papers. Samuel spent the night reviewing deeds, bills of sale, and transfer documents. By morning, he had found what Jasper must have seen, a pattern of forgeries, properties changing hands through coercion or fraud. And something else, Blake's signature on papers dated when Wade was killed, placing him miles from town. "He has an alibi," Samuel told Sarah as dawn broke. "But he's still behind it. What will you do?" Samuel looked out the window at the town coming to life. "Something I should have done a long time ago." The marshal's office was empty when Samuel entered. He moved quickly to the gun cabinet, finding it locked. The key would be on Dawson's belt. Instead, Samuel took a letter opener from the desk and worked the simple lock until it gave. Inside were rifles, shotguns, and boxes of ammunition. Samuel selected a Winchester repeater and loaded it, then took a shotgun as well. As he turned to leave, his eye caught something on the desk, a telegram addressed to Dawson. Samuel unfolded it, reading quickly. "Circuit judge arriving noon stage stop. Prepare Collins for immediate trial." Samuel's jaw set. They were rushing the trial to hang Jasper before the truth could come out. He had hours, not days. He made his way to the jail through the back alley. The cell block was guarded by a single deputy, young and nervous. Samuel entered with the shotgun raised. "Keys," he said quietly. The deputy's hand moved toward his gun. "Don't," Samuel warned. "I've got no quarrel with you, but I will shoot if I have to." The deputy swallowed hard, then slowly removed the keys from his belt and slid them across the desk. Samuel motioned him into an empty cell and locked the door. Jasper looked up in surprise as Samuel approached his cell. "What are you doing, Sam?" "Getting you out. Judge is coming today. They're planning to hang you before sundown." Jasper shook his head. "I can't run. It'll just confirm I'm guilty." "You won't be running," Samuel said, unlocking the cell. "We're going to end this. I know Blake killed Wade. I have proof." They left through the back door, making their way to Sarah's office. She was waiting with horses saddled behind the building. "Blake's at the mine," she told them. "Weekly inspection. Takes the foreman and most of the guards with him." "That's where we're headed," Samuel said, mounting up. The mine entrance lay 3 miles outside town, a dark wound in the mountainside with wooden supports framing the mouth. A small building served as an office, with a corral of horses nearby indicating Blake was indeed there. Samuel, Jasper, and Sarah approached cautiously, using the trees for cover. 4 guards stood outside the office, rifles in hand. "We need to draw them away from Blake," Samuel said. Jasper nodded toward a stack of dynamite near the mine entrance. "That might do it." Samuel handed him the Winchester. "Cover me." Moving low through the underbrush, Samuel worked his way to the dynamite. He took a single stick and retreated to a safe distance before lighting the fuse and throwing it toward an empty cart. The explosion rocked the clearing. Guards shouted, running toward the smoke and flames. Samuel and Jasper used the distraction to slip into the office while Sarah kept watch outside. Blake was alone inside, crouched behind his desk with a derringer in hand. When the door opened, he fired wildly. The bullet splintered the doorframe near Samuel's head. "It's over, Blake," Samuel called. "We have the land records. We know about the forgeries. We know you killed Wade." "You can't prove anything," Blake shouted back. "The telegram putting you in Denver the night Wade died? I found the original. You never left town." Samuel moved closer, keeping low. "Dawson's been paid to lie, but he'll talk when faced with hanging as an accessory." A second shot from the derringer buried itself in the floorboards. Then silence. Samuel rounded the desk to find Blake slumped in his chair, the small gun dangling from his fingers. His eyes held the hollow look of a man who knew he was finished. "You're a fool, Trent," he said quietly. "This doesn't end with me. The company will send someone else. Progress doesn't stop for one old lawman." "Maybe not," Samuel agreed, taking the gun from Blake's unresisting hand. "But it'll have to find another way forward." They marched Blake back to town, drawing stares from miners and townsfolk alike. At the marshal's office, they found Sheriff Dawson returning from his rounds. His hand dropped to his gun when he saw them. "I wouldn't," Jasper said, the Winchester steady in his hands. Dawson's shoulders sagged. He knew when he was beaten. By the time the circuit judge arrived, both Blake and Dawson were in cells. Sarah had printed a special edition of her newspaper detailing the land scheme and Wade's murder. The judge, a stern man with piercing eyes, reviewed the evidence in the newspaper office while Samuel and Jasper waited. "This is quite a story, gentlemen," he said finally. "If even half of it is true, we're looking at multiple counts of fraud, coercion, and murder." He fixed Samuel with a thoughtful look. "You took quite a risk, Marshal Trent." "Not a marshal anymore," Samuel said. "Just doing what needed doing." The judge nodded slowly. "Sometimes that's all any of us can do." 2 weeks later, Samuel stood once more at the edge of Willow Creek's river. The water flowed clear and cold, carrying leaves and twigs downstream toward distant places. He'd returned home after testifying at Blake's preliminary hearing, leaving Jasper to rebuild his life and reputation in Broken Ridge. The town felt different somehow, or perhaps it was Samuel who had changed. He moved to his empty house with new purpose, cleaning away dust and opening windows. In the attic, he found a trunk he hadn't opened since Martha's death. Inside lay mementos of their life together, her wedding dress, now yellowed with age, photographs in tarnished frames, letters tied with faded ribbon. Beneath these, wrapped in a soft cloth, was a badge, not the one he'd thrown into the river, but an older one from his first years as a lawman. As he held it, a folded paper fell from the cloth. Samuel recognized Martha's handwriting immediately. The letter was dated 3 days before her death. "My dearest Samuel," it began. "By the time you read this, I will be gone. There are things I need you to know. I have watched you carry the weight of your badge for 30 years. I have seen how it has bent your shoulders and lined your face. I have also seen how it has strengthened your spirit and defined your character. I feared, at times, that I would lose you to the darkness you faced each day, that the man I married would disappear beneath the Marshal's star. But you always came back to me, even when the days were darkest. Remember this, my love, the badge is not who you are. It is only what you do. The man beneath it, kind, just stubborn as a mule, that is who I have loved all these years. That is who you must find again when I am gone. Do not let grief hollow you out. Do not hide from life because I am no longer in it. Find your way forward, Samuel, and know that I will love you always." Samuel folded the letter carefully, his vision blurred by tears he hadn't allowed himself to shed at her funeral. He placed it in his shirt pocket, close to his heart, and descended from the attic. That evening, as shadows lengthened across Willow Creek, Samuel returned to the river. The badge from the trunk weighed in his palm, lighter than he remembered, yet somehow more significant. He stood for a long moment, watching the water flow. Then, with deliberate care, he tossed the badge into the current. This time, it didn't fight the flow. It caught the last light of day as it spun, then settled into the rhythm of the river, moving steadily downstream until it vanished from sight. Samuel watched until darkness fell, feeling neither triumph nor loss, only a quiet certainty that whatever came next, he would face it as himself. Not as the Marshal he had been, nor as the hollow man he had become after Martha's death, but as something new. Something still taking shape. He turned away from the river and walked back toward town, where lights glowed and windows and voices called to one another across the gathering night. His steps were steady, his back straight but not rigid. The weight he carried now was his own. Behind him, unseen, the river continued its ancient journey, carrying stories to places beyond imagining, some ending, others just beginning to unfold.